It's the standard of the 6th Legion. Where did you find this? It was being sold in Tarsus, Magister. I took on quite the debt to acquire it. You did well. I will reimburse you. Wait outside a moment. Yes, Magister. Legatus! Ready, sir! You were right. Uncle's men are gone. Our west is exposed. Eutropius, we still don't know. Our east is exposed. Sassanids to the south, and rebels to the north. There is nothing to show for the Senate's power grab. So much for being made Magister Militum. And I have heard from Anicius. The exact same thing is happening to him. His support is gone, but the taxes remain. The rule of Rome is too distant, Magister. They do not see what is happening. We tell them enough. They know of what level of commitment is required, and they deliberately fall short because, well, who knows? No legitimate reason. How am I meant to coordinate our forces when half the Empire is effectively beyond hearing me? And I myself am constantly fighting on all sides, and holding lands that will only be part of the Empire if they themselves can be masters of it. This is why they created the second capital. This is why the Empire fell in the first place. Kind of them to allow me to be responsible for it. Hello there and welcome back to Fields of Mars. Last time we essentially took one big step back and another step forwards. The step back was the loss of one of our elite armies fighting with many Assassinid armies. We lost all of our men, they lost not enough of theirs for it to have been worth it. Eutropius took his troops though to invade various eastern provinces east of Anatolia and actually created a number of new allied states for ourselves that may secure our borders over there, so now he can come back to help out in Anatolia and hopefully we can stabilise the situation. First we'll take a look at Egypt, where the Garamantian invasions are carrying on, and Anicius is going down to Oxyrhynchus to take out the army that last time took out the one general I had recruited there and the garrison, and of course sacked the settlement. The AI very unwilling to capture places in Egypt for whatever reason, and Anicius has no problem just taking this damaged army out. And there's still 2 stacks back at Alexandria, but I just gambled they wouldn't bother to attack us. Now the Alamans are beginning their attack on Octogeron. It seems we are going to face a Alps crossing invasion from them, and they've got plenty more forces on the way. And we've got another battle lined up here. It's the Huns. They've come to meet Julianus, who was camping on their border just waiting for the snow to clear so he could go and attack them. So I guess this will speed things up. They've got about 2 and a bit armies in total here. I was pretty pleased to see we had the fort on our side because we can just use the towers to cut down all their horse archers and just sit in testudos to wait for that to happen. But it turned out this was actually a river battle. I thought that forts overrode river battles, but maybe that was in Rome too. Anyway, we'll just have to make the best of it. I've put some defences out in the river to take down some of their cavalry as they come in, although these deer have no problem getting through the walls of stakes, so I don't know how effective it's going to be. Our army is set up on 2 different crossing points to cover them both as the battle gets started, and they did have one general's unit that looked like it was going to go across that eastern point, but apparently not. It's coming over to the west where the rest of their army is forming up, and we're just going to wait for them. Got our stationary testudo going to defend against their missiles and cav, but there was a problem. As you can see here, their cavalry just go right past my men and into our back lines. The archers super vulnerable to this charge, and it's because this differently coloured bit of ground here, I presumed that was impassable and only the white bit was where they could come across, where I put the defences up. So I was very much screwed over there. Now their cavalry are just behind us. I'm having to readjust the formation to try and put units there, but in the meantime we'll have to just deal with the cav with our own cav, sending them forwards to engage in melees along with the archers. Our cavalry is pretty good luckily, so we can push the enemy back, and they're trying to cycle charge, but there's so much chaos everywhere it's not really going to work, and these guys go so far backwards they actually run into some of our anti-cavalry defences, so that's going to screw them over a little bit. Very nice. In comes their commander now to investigate the situation. He, fortunately, is just going to attack the front line of our men here. That's much more generous. We'll have a nice easy time fighting with him. And now, as you can see, we're kind of plugging this gap back up, and a few of the enemy's cav are going to be trapped behind our lines as we put this spear wall here defending the gap, and they're probably going to be wiped out in their attempts to escape, all well and good. So with that emergency over now, we just have to face the rest of their army, billions of ranged units, tons of cav and tons of regular spear units and a few odd infantry units here and there. So they're just going to charge right into the front of us. There's not much to do in the way of tactics for either side right now. We just have to hope our men on the front line will defeat theirs. They do have some axemen coming in here. This is the most dangerous part of the fight, most likely, because those axemen can kill our legionaries, and they've even managed to sneak a couple of guys, or a girl in this case actually, behind us. So hopefully our unit will hold out there. Our standard bearer having a bit of a hard time, but the enemy's morale's pretty low. I think we killed their commander pretty early on, and they're exhausted from crossing the river, which is going to reduce their stats in these fights as well. I didn't bother trying any rear attacks or going around to the other crossing or anything, firstly because I didn't really have the troops to spare. I kind of needed everything on the front line here, and secondly because attacking Huns from behind doesn't necessarily work, because back there's just going to be loads of archers and horse archers who might just take down any units I send back there. So the grind will continue here. I'm finally plugging up this last little gap in the line that the enemy kind of exploited with a pike unit. Nothing too special from them, and at this point you can see there's lots of shattering going on across the place. The enemy has lots of lower level spear units that just didn't really want to fight and didn't have much chance fighting against the legionaries, so they were defeated, and that's going to start demoralizing everything else as they see parts of their army falling back. There's just an absolute mess going on in the river with cavalry all over the place, probably all trying to walk in different directions, so it's a big mosh. Our archers can shoot into that pretty successfully and do some damage. We start to thin them out, and now it's just kind of foot ranged units here still firing back at us. Lots of strong units remaining on the enemy side, but you can see from the balance bar that they're starting to lose just because they haven't managed to do enough damage to our front line, and so much of the stuff has routed away. They've had a lot of units rout with lots of their strength left, so we're not necessarily killing an enormous amount of this army, but we're doing enough damage that if we just go fight them again, we'll have a big advantage, so that is nice. And here you can see they're starting to flee. The replay was actually corrupt. All of these units were routing at this point, which is why my whole army is just charging forwards there. But anyway, the replay claims it's a close defeat because the units hadn't routed in the replay, but of course they had, so that's a nice victory, thinning out the Huns, and with this, it looks like Julianus' plan to destroy the Huns' last settlement is going to work. Calling upon their dark magic, the Huns channeled their malice into a bitter gust of freezing air, turning the surface of the river into a causeway so solid that their horsemen could clatter across it, outflanking our troops. But they did not think enough of the strength of Roman arms. I led our own horsemen out into the frozen battlegrounds to meet them, cutting down hapless nomads one after the other. Seeing such power, they recoiled and rushed back. Being slow-witted creatures, they would try again, but this time they would meet the wall of spears I hand-placed in their path. With their crossing foiled, they slowly froze in the icy water until they could bear no more and fled for their lives. We ensured few would live to regret their decision. Looking at the results, you can see the enemy actually lost surprisingly little in terms of units, only 2 in fact, and one of them was a general, so they'll get that one back for free. So the damage to the enemy not permanent, but because they can't replenish right now, and because we're on the verge of attacking them again, this may actually still make things very easy for us. The Garamantians very kindly fall back from their apparent invasion plans for Alexandria, just running away there, so that's nice, although the Lakhmids still at large in Egypt. Really though, I want to focus on this, the Alaman invasion coming up to Octogeron. One of the stacks is basically all Germanic spearmasters, and I'm sort of despairing at this, wondering how we're going to take that down. Germanic spearmasters are a heavy armor, super high ability melee unit, and we don't really have anything available to fight them with. We've got a full stack garrison in the town, although it's all inferior relatively, and we've got a load of Western Auxilia Palatina waiting around the place in Mediolanum and of course under Uther at Lugdunum. And the stack onto Uther, there's actually one thing we can try and do with this, because Uther can do night attacks. So although we've actually got 3 armies together, we can use the night attack ability to fight just one of them. This could be a chance to critically weaken their invasion in a very sneaky fashion. Although I realised that the army I wanted to fight wasn't the one I'm engaging right now. One of the 3 armies is much weaker than the other one, so we can night attack that one more safely. Hopefully just destroy it and then think about what we can do about the other 2. So I change my target, go back into night attack, and it's actually really far in our favour now. Their units are all damaged and they're much lighter in general, only a couple of units of those Germanic Spearmasters. So we can auto-resolve this one just to get rid of that army, and we just have to hope the damage to our side isn't very much, because we are very likely going to have to fight more battles in the very immediate future. We get a decisive victory, a lot of the enemy army destroyed, and the rest will run away, so now they're out of the action for now, although the other army that ran away for a little bit there didn't run away far enough to get enough reinforcement range. That would have been a nice boon if we could then single out these other 2 armies even without the night attack. So with that done, I need to decide what to do. Uther's in a bit of a situation because there are more armies up to the north. He could be attacked by like 5 armies, or 4 the maximum, potentially in the next turn, and the enemy could attack Lugdunum, which only has 4 units guarding it. Realising this, I thought we have to do something. We have to try and at least take down one more, break the siege if we can. So what I wanted to do was come up with this small band of troops we've got at Mediolanum to attack the men who are besieging Octoduron. This will draw in Uther as reinforcements, and of course we'll have that full stack garrison as well, and we'll fight 2 enemy armies. It's a balanced engagement. That first enemy army full of those Germanic spears, a little bit of a threat, because as I said, we don't have anything to counter them. We can slowly kill them with our spearmen, although it'll be a very bad trade. The second army, less heavy on the spears, lots of crossbows, a more situational strength. It really depends how the reinforcement directions all end up, what that's going to be like, because we might get a chance to take down the crossbows before the fight starts. So we've got our forces coming in from the south, so the group we attacked with and the garrison will be down there. Uther, unfortunately for us, actually came in towards the top left. I thought he'd be on the top right, and this is going to be a problem because the enemy forces were also on the left, their reinforcements that is. So now Uther's kind of stuck. The enemy's main deployment zone and their reinforcements are both in front of him, and he's going to risk fighting all of their forces at once. So what I'm going to try and do is go to the side and just attack their reinforcements if I can. I want to take down all the lighter units that came in, like those crossbows, as I said. As we start moving over there, though, they've got a couple of onagers, which are just wrecking our spearmen, dropping shots into us, and the snow slightly reducing our movement speed doesn't help with us getting out of the way of those either. Some cavalry come to investigate our advance. A bad decision, that shouldn't be any problem, we'll just keep fighting forwards. And the risk really is that the enemy's main force will just come over. I actually can't see them in the battle because they're all hidden in that forest, but I knew they were there somewhere, so I was just waiting to see what would happen. Now, a lot of the enemy's reinforcement troops are actually rushing forwards. They don't want to engage me, they want to link up with the other army first. So because of that, I'm going to charge forwards and try and just get these crossbowmen and isolate them. It kind of works in that they run away from me, so they're now separated from the rest of the army, but I can't catch them, so we're just kind of running after them forever now. I need my cavalry to attack them. Uther was using the cavalry to take down the onagers, which he succeeded in doing, but you can see it's going to be one of those battles where the enemy has infinite morale, because even that onager crew with just a couple of men comes back from routing and keeps fighting in melee, even though there are no forces nearby. So yes, it's going to be one of those. We need to hammer down the enemy's general if we can, because he's probably giving them a giant morale buff. So we managed to catch a few of those enemy crossbow units. I'm bringing in cavalry from the guys coming from the south as well to help out. Now I had some mercenary cav and our general, of course, to help out. Some of these crossbow units just going to be completely wiped out immediately by these attacks. This is going to be very nice because most of our army is weak against crossbow fire when they're out of testudo, that is, at least. So very nice to just dispatch all these units. And the enemy army isn't going to support them, which is very kind of them. They are just going to continue forming up in the forest at the back there. So we've got plenty of leeway to just play around with all the units that have been left out of their formation for whatever reason. A few of these crossbow guys we couldn't possibly catch, but I have just got them shooting into the front of testudos now, so that won't do anything and will at least fixate their attention and stop them from killing a unit that is more vulnerable. Although once the enemy's main force starts to move, those testudos are just going to disappear under the enemy's infantry. Now their general, very kindly, was out in the middle of nowhere on his own, so we're going to focus a load of units on trying to kill him. He did have a really heavy unit, so it's going to be difficult, but that will be a very valuable project if we can get it to succeed. But meanwhile, we start to see what happens when the enemy's spearmasters come to attack our Palatina, and that is, we just lose in seconds and we get overwhelmed. I think in this case, our own archers were making things worse by shooting into the melee, so that's not very nice. What I need to do is try and surround these units and try and get some kind of morale debuff on them, because getting them to rout is our only real chance to get rid of them. Luckily, these units seem to be coming out on their own, just a few probing units attacking Uther's army, so we are going to get lots of nice chances for those surrounds. So we'll see what we can do with that while the rest of their army is going off to attack our guys coming from the south. We do rout the enemy's general with a mass attack, and now we're just trying to kill him in this rout. But while we're doing so, the enemy's infantry are advancing up, crossbow bolts and javelins coming in, killing tons of our men, but we really need to kill that general, so I'm willing to sacrifice anything to keep that fight going.
General Uther, I didn't expect to see you out here.
It's Lord Uther, and why should I not fight with my men?
No reason, Lord. I was just surprised, given your age.
Frailty can be overcome at God's command. I can cut a heretic in two as finely as a soft-skinned champion. You'll be seeing proof soon.
I thought you worshipped the same God as our foe.
Perhaps we worship him, but they do not hear his words. Only a twisted version that his more vile servants have prepared for their own unholy desires. But I didn't come here to talk about religion, especially... I trust you are one of the pagans.
Yes, Lord, but that won't be a problem, will it?
Not until there are no heathens left. The bulk of the enemy's army is attacking our combined force coming from the south. I've put a wall of Legio Comitatensis to try and resist their spearmen. They'll have better luck than the Western Auxilia Palatina. There's still not much luck. As you can see, we're losing entire units and not really damaging these spearmasters. They are a really high-level melee unit that's pretty cheap, which is what makes the Germanic factions pretty strong overall at this point in the game. We did kill their general, though. That was the big thing I was hoping would turn this around. We see one unit shatter, although it was already completely surrounded. This other isolated unit still fighting on. We just can't defeat it, even with 3-on-1 and fighting them from all sides. Not a good sign. They've broken through the centre of our line of Legio, so the other units won't last long now, and we've got this big long line where it's our spears versus theirs, and that's not really working either, of course, going to work even worse than the Legio attempts to hold them back. So our main army coming from the south at least is going to be pretty much wiped out. As you can see, it's just scattered all over the place, routing here and there, and our weakened units now have no chance. They can just try and escape. That's really all the good they can do for us right now. Uther's army still not really heavily engaged by the enemy, but struggling nonetheless, as our units already weakened by the fighting so far are going to try and take on just a couple of Spearmaster units that came over to investigate our presence here. Their initial charge going to do decent damage, and now the melee that ensues going to be deadly for our side. We have just a few moments to surround them and try and do something to them. Another unit nearby that I'm doing the same thing to is going to be the victim of our one effective possible means of attack, and that is hitting them with the heavy cavalry. Even though they are a heavy spear unit, the charge bonus will kill enough of them that it's then possible to rout them if they were weak enough to start with. So there you can see we do shatter one of the units, and that unit will be destroyed. We'll want to try and do the same thing to this one before it hacks its way out of our encirclement, almost breaking the two units fighting it on the front there. Not very nice. We did manage to take that one down, but the rest of their army is going to come over now, and after all that difficulty fighting two units, now we have to fight all of the ones that are still alive, and this could be a challenge, especially because so many of our units are weakened and are on low morale. So we're going to get guys who are just going to rout instantly as the fights start. Not nice at all. The enemy being slightly hesitant here by the looks of things to engage, but that's only going to benefit them because they're all going to form up properly before they hit us. The one nice part of this fight was here where their slingers came in to engage us first, and that provides a little bit of a buffer. The spearmen behind won't be attacking us so much, so our centre will hold out a bit longer than the other parts of the line as a result of that. But that's not exactly a strong consolation given what's happening to all our men. I'm trying to hit enemies from behind with the generals again, but it's not working terribly well, and they have so many spearmen that they can easily react to these attacks. I did manage to actually shatter a couple of units there somehow with those attacks, although I lost almost all of the heavy cavalry in the process. Uther's down to something like 10 men in his unit at this point, Tiberio having a few more men, and we've got 2 units of scout equites who came on as reinforcements from the garrison, who are marauding about looking for targets, but being light cavalry, not too much they can do other than watch all of our melee infantry just be destroyed. I had a couple more archer units coming on as extra reinforcements from the town. They are just going to be the victim of these spearmasters. They're on skirmish mode, but it's not working today. The unit behind them skirmishes away in time. This one waits till the last second, and I finally give them a manual order, but they routed, so that's not going to last very long, obviously. And at this point, we've lost so much of our forces that we're just going to be shattering all over the place due to army losses. Uther routing away, somehow alive with just a few bodyguards. My scout equites eventually managed to kill a unit of spearmen in the very corner of the map, but then they routed as well right after that. These archers hanging on, one of them came back from routing, and now we can use heavy shot on the flanks of these spearmaster units, and that's going to be pretty effective. It's an anti-armor tactic, and since they're not facing us, their big shields don't help them out either. So that did some damage, but they still routed just because the enemy had so much stuff. So once they got a little bit more tired, I think that caused them to leave, and it was all over. It was a valiant defeat. We've lost virtually everything in this fight. The question is, have we damaged the enemy enough to halt their invasion and perhaps make it worth it?
I have reason to believe, honourable gentlemen, that this entire war was schemed up by none other than the self-styled Lord of Gaul, Uther. Yes, for he is more in the ilk of the corrupt emperors and officials who took it upon themselves to believe in a forgotten cult of the East. And so, as you may be interested to learn, are certain elements among the Germanic peoples. This war, then, arises from the internal bickering of Christians. They preach at each other about this and that detail of some foreign event, and now Uther has been heard encouraging the slaughter of the Germans as heretics. And now, gentlemen, he has our whole empire up against the wall. Therefore, there can be no solution that does not come entirely at his expense.
Let's take a look at the damage done then. On the enemy's first army, just a couple of full units taken out, but a lot of the other units are in really bad condition, and they are in my territory in winter, so they won't take replenishment right away. The second army, more damage, losing most of the ranged units there, all of the ranged units, so that's going to make them less effective, plus a lot of their melee units were damaged. And on our side, we've just lost virtually everything. Our general surviving, and a couple of units in Uther's army going to get away as well, but virtually everything destroyed. Some of the garrisons still alive, but not enough to hold off the enemy as they are now. So that's pretty much the end of that, and I was just checking the kills there and noting how my guys virtually all got no kills and their spearmasters all got hundreds of kills each. A very effective unit indeed. So our survivors are going to retreat away, Uther retreating very awkwardly further into enemy territory, now standing by Vesontio where there are more Alaman forces and the garrisons in range of him. But we can get him out actually using a little exploit, I guess it is. You can disband generals at any time, and this just makes their army disappear, and the general himself is sent back to the general pool, which is effectively a teleporter. You can then put him anywhere in your empire after that. So he's going to mysteriously scatter his force and just get back to our territory, somehow evading the enemy, although the enemy are going to have plenty of liberties to attack Lugdunum in his absence if they don't come down into Italia. I was just looking around to confirm to myself how much trouble we're in. We don't really have military recruitment buildings in Italia. So we can't raise armies other than loads of Western Auxilia Palatina, and that's not really going to be enough. So we need to come up with a solution to this invasion threat. Tubero's going to go right down when he gets attacked by some of the Alamans. He can't retreat, having recently lost a battle, so that's going to be the end of his short career. So now I wanted to see if the Alamans would attack up to Duron. They certainly have the strength to do so. They're moving all sorts of things around the place and looking like they might be coming for an attack on Western Gaul once again with some other forces, but they don't go for Octoduron right now, so that was nice of them. I did have to deal with some rebels over in Anatolia. They're attacking Sinope, and they actually won. I tried to win it by auto-resolve, failed, but fortunately Eutropius is now arriving back into Anatolia, so he quickly defeated that rebel army and took Sinope back for us. The problem with this is that battle is taking place around settlements, causes everything in the settlement to get completely wrecked. So now it's in terrible condition, which means it's very likely to rebel again, and the cycle will continue. Hopefully, if Eutropius can get his act together here, we can find some permanent solution to this issue. Now, Uther is going to reappear over in Burdigala, just starting a new army, actually reinstating the legacy of an old one, just to get a few bonuses there, and giving him some Praetorian Cav instead of the heavy Cav he used to be using. That'll make him more powerful as an individual unit, although he is very old at this point, like Julianus, so he may not last much longer. We can recruit here some Western Roman style units, including the Elite Palatina, an attack-focused unit that we haven't tried out yet, so I thought I might throw a few of those into this army as we try and put something together in case the Alamans do go in that direction. Now back over to Julianus, where he is ready to attack the Huns. I was going to wait until the snow's cleared, but I thought it's not worth it. There's only a short distance to march, and the Huns have scattered all over the place, so they only have a small army defending their settlement. I'm going to throw some mercenaries in cheekily just to make this a super easy auto-resolve for us. I've been using the word settlement here pretty liberally. It's just a colonized ruin, so it doesn't have any population and no buildings. They're just standing on a pile, basically, and we're going to hack them off that pile and potentially claim it for ourselves. I didn't want to occupy this place, of course. I didn't want to build up anything so far from my empire, and I was going to just raise it and go home, but I noticed I had the opportunity here to subjugate the Huns and cause them to become one of my puppet states. I took that opportunity because now the Hun armies around the place will serve me. Your puppet states automatically declare war on all your enemies, so now they might actually attack the Alamans. Plus, they were about to invade us in northern Italia, so that invasion is now going to be turned back and sent perhaps against the Alamans. So we've saved possibly some damage being done there. Julianus really making a name for himself here. Not only defeating the Huns, but turning them onto our side. Hopefully he can spin that in his favour, even more than he already has this whole campaign. And perhaps as evidence of him doing so, he actually gets the final level up, the Vir Illustrious ability, which gives you tons of buffs. Basically, he is now a living legend at last. Although, as I said, perhaps not living much longer, given that he's almost 70, I think, at this point. But a nice little campaign for him to have got under his belt, even if it is right at the end there. That's going to save us a lot of trouble, hopefully, anyway. So now the Alamans are going to attack Optiduron, having decided they finally have the numbers, apparently, although they've probably lost some troops over the end turn sequence due to attrition. Down it goes. They're going to occupy it. That will allow them to replenish, and they've got reinforcements coming in as well, so more invasions, most likely, going to be on the cards here. While seeming weak, the split empire was holding itself together. The Western Romans took war out of Iberia and into Africa, thus also securing the Mediterranean for the Britannian Romans, who dealt with the Central European wars. The semi-autonomous dynasty of Constans that was fighting the Sassanids was beginning to rejoin the Greater Administration after successfully pacifying Greece, Macedonia and Thrace. And said dynasty's splitting of war fronts between Anatolia and Egypt had paralysed the great Sassanid war machine, marking a huge decline in their activity. It was a careful balance, where the failure of one element would ensure the failure of all others. But if one or more were successful, the empire might be brought together further still. That is all for now. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you as always to the OfficiallyDevin patrons. So can we stop this invasion? Well, it looks like we've got a lot of work to do in the next episode of Fields of Mars.